Hello, 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 and welcome to the CLAYSTATIon Podcast. You're listening to Sean Jackson, and this is your place for all things ceramic. I'm your host, Sean Jackson, and today we have a very special guest artist, Mike Mangion. How are you, Mike? Welcome to the show.
Hey Sean, how are you, bro? It's good to be here. And
I hope I did pronounce your name correctly. Mangion, is that correct?
you pronounced it absolutely correctly,
Awesome.
which is a rarity for an Australian.
Nice.
I know, taking a bit of shit on our own.
Oh yeah, I know I have a history of butchering people's names, so I thought I'd just double check. So how are
No,
you?
that was it.
What are you working on these
Me?
days? Yeah.
I'm 45. And how long have I been working on this stuff for?
I said,
Let's see.
Mike,
Sorry, yeah.
Mike, I said, how are you? Not how old are you?
Oh, sorry. How am I? I'm good. Yeah. Jeez, wow.
That's okay.
I might turn this up from this end a little bit. Okay, that'll probably be a bit better. Yeah, generally I'm good. Yeah.
That's good.
Nice day here in Victoria. And just doing my thing.
Yep, that's awesome. I'd like to let the listeners know that I've actually invited Mike onto this show because I feel that his background in ceramics is quite deep in terms of material analysis, and also he has a strong history in research in ceramic materials and how that scientific information can be translated into the fine arts industry, which is very, very unique and very niche within the ceramics industry, and it's something that of great importance, which takes a long time to develop such an understanding. Thank you, Mike, for coming today. You're awesome, and also a great friend. First, we might look into your history. Whereabouts did you grow up? Are you sort of in the same area where you grew up?
Yeah, a little bit, pretty much in the same sort of district of, where I grew up. I mean, I've moved around a couple of places within Victoria. Yes, for everybody else that are listening outside of Australia, Victoria, Australia. Um, um, Pretty much my journey with clay uh, began as a way to get away from bullying.
Okay.
And from there, my teacher actually, because he didn't really have students taking an interest, I was the first one to be able to gain a lot of insight from him, and he taught me a great deal, such as firing of kilns, and hence I was basically firing the kilns majority of the time, and including allowing me the chance to start throwing. And I mean, that was a funny one within itself, uh, because I kind of jumped on the potter's wheel while he wasn't present, and he walked in on me and told me off, rightfully so, only because he hadn't gone through, well, do not turn it on, do not press it unless it's turned on, blah, blah, blah. But from there, he began really teaching me, and by year 10, I was actually helping him teach his year 11 and 12 students how to throw and helping them glaze the work.
So this was in high school.
Yeah, this is in high school, or
Okay.
what we called back then tech, as in technical college,
Okay. So
which is older system.
this was this was in high school because I've always thought of tech as being like TAFE, but because I was homeschooled,
No,
so a lot of these
yeah,
lingos I don't
I see.
know.
Yeah, no, actually, there was, well, pretty much the trade school system,
Right.
but for from year 7 to year 12, uh, mainly for boys. But yeah,
Okay.
that's how it was back then. And then yeah, they closed a lot of them down, and they simply became high schools or taken over by TAFEs
Did you have a
because there are.
did you have a like a class um educational approach, or were you more one-on-one with the your art teacher?
I was actually a bit of both. There was a lot more one-on-one, and I mean, I was very privileged in that way because I mean, uh, I was allowed to be taken from some classes in order to join the rest of his more advanced classes uh, for year 11 and 12, such as days where he would take them for doing raku firing, and I would be his assistant.
Oh, that was very good, because then you actually had some experience on the social aspect of it as well, which is quite
Oh yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And it was from that point that I enjoyed learning and teaching as well. So by the end of there, I certainly knew where I was well and truly headed with my career. Not that it's been the greatest of a, and it's been rather jumpy within the career, but I knew the direction.
Mm. How do you feel from like an origin, as you're saying before, that it started off as an escape from bullying and led into like a guided path towards something? I don't want to say the word therapeutic. I think that's overused. But what direction do you feel that it has gone through?
Well, it also encouraged me to let out my creative side and falling in love with the material itself, as every potter does,
Mm.
and every ceramicist, every ceramic artist, whatever pigeonhole you would like to cast yourself in or not be cast in. But I guess it was a love affair and falling in love with the medium itself that made me continually want to go back and continue with it.
Nice, nice. Did your family, your parents or siblings, if any, did any of your family have some creative background or input?
Yeah, yeah, actually, on my mum's side, well, not only my mum enjoys her part-time uh, things such as folk art that she would used to do, and also my grandmother um, really enjoyed uh, uh, doing things such as stretching out into many different fields that we would commonly associate as craft, um, because it was just an enjoyment for her. But nonetheless, she was creative in her own rights,
Yes.
um, and she even took up ceramics as in uh, just a simple go to the hobby craft, the hobby ceramics little shop and go and paint a mold made piece, and she was very happy with that. So I would quite often joiner.
Do you feel
Um,
do you feel that your involvement in ceramics now has sort of rubbed back on your family?
That would be a difficult one to say. I would not have a clue, to be honest.
Okay.
They're all doing their own things.
Because it's interesting, like once you sort of start having your own footprint, especially in ceramics, I think it's or any art field really, you start to influence those around you in your circle. And then they see like whether you're successful or not, they sort of see like the skill that you're able to develop, and they want to like imitate that. They say, oh, if you can do it, I can do it.
Well, yeah, I suppose my grandma would fit into that category.
Yeah.
That looks like fun. I want to do some sort of form of that too.
And then they have a go and get knocked off the wheel.
Well, yes, or something just does not turn out exactly how they wanted. Why didn't that work? They can be funny.
From moving on from high school to the next step, did you take a break from ceramics, or did you try to pursue that after high school? Or
Well,
what was the next step?
the next step was a forced time away from ceramics. See, when I was about 16, um, I'd actually had cranial surgery. So there was that forced me out of doing my year 11 and 12, and basically with not really wanting to go back to high school. I eventually got better and approached the tape system that was local to me. By that time, I was living in country Victoria, um, and yeah, immediately pretty much just got in just with one interview.
So at TAFE, was that like a so you're doing a TAFE course, is that correct?
Yeah, I was doing the tape course. That was back then. Well, the diploma of ceramics.
Okay, so I've seen that quite a few people do what's called a diploma in ceramics. Like myself, I did
Yeah,
a diploma in fine arts, and then we were introduced
yeah.
to everything, and then ceramics was like a branch of it. But what's that like doing a diploma in ceramics, like solely focused on ceramics?
Believe it or not, it's the foundation and the backbone, and it's actually quite a bit more of the backbone in terms of the developing the technical ability to produce ware, understand the chemistry behind the things that are going on, thermal, well, in a sense, I suppose, thermal chemistry, because we are firing our work, and also the glaze chemistry as well, those interactions, which allowed us to further develop and start researching further on and discover and understand those mechanisms a lot more. Whereas you don't quite get that system within a lot of the universities
Right.
that
Yeah.
really don't.
I can attest to that.
It's-
A whole bunch of my money wasted.
well, the research, don't get me wrong, I mean, university has its value uh, because it teaches a different set of specifics on how to judge work and how to how to approach things on a much more theoretical basis.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
From being at TAFE and doing the diploma in ceramics, is that where you started having that interest in raw materials?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, uh, through the understanding of being put through what we would the classes of what was called back then clay and glaze chemistry. Um, uh, you were introduced to various things, not only the regular type of testing procedures, but you were encouraged also to go and gather materials from local areas and actually test them, see what they were capable of, and see if they could actually be developed. So, in that regards, being in Latrobe Valley, where all of the electricity for Victoria is produced, or as from the coal mines, um, that sort of region has quite a lot of clay lenses, and uh, there were quite a diverse range that we were actually testing and
Right.
were allowed to test, including from the bottom of the coal mine. So that was rather interesting because that turned out to be very a very white cable, and so we found out.
Your connections in the mining industry has always surprised me.
That's only because I'm a coal miner's son.
Ah, nice. Okay, well that's where it all comes from then. Do you think that
Uh,
was that a joke or was that actual really real?
oh no, that's true.
Okay, so do you
It is
think?
partly a joke because it is playing on the pun of the coal miner's daughter.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was just
Which I'm
thinking. Yeah.
sure if some listeners who know me as you know me would get that joke instantly. But nonetheless, um, that particular area in Victoria is not only known for its mining industry, such as the coal industry, such as it is. Um, that might be its major um, resource, but uh, it is also within the gold province, one of the gold provinces of Victoria. So just outside of there is a very old historical gold mining town, a ghost one, which I have strong connections to.
Yeah, down in Victoria, there's a lot of those areas around, isn't there? The
Yeah, and it's to do with the geographic sort of the way that Victoria was actually built up and so forth, and including well the eastern part, the southeastern part of of Australia.
Following on from your time at TAFE, did you after TAFE did you take another break or did you continue on to do something else?
From there, yeah, I did. Um, I actually uh, went on to work in the exhibition industry, uh, putting together exhibitions and so forth. Not exhibitions that we hold, but the trading type of ones that are in places like the exhibition buildings and so forth. Um,
Is that like the trade shows?
the trade shows, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, it was an interesting time, and it was a good escape, but there was definitely the calling back. to come back to it. It was just a time in my life when I didn't have the facilities around me and so forth, and to be able to continue working with ceramics.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I eventually found during those particular type of times, that's when I still try and keep some sort of little finger or a toe in sort of research ways.
Oh,
So
definitely, yes.
keep that interest there. Yeah. Which we'll talk about later on
Oh, yeah.
when we get up.
That's one of the most important things is like, if you can't actually physically do something, you still have to try to maintain those connections. Like if you can't do something, actually keep those relationships with people in the industry and do as much, I don't know, whether it's favors or just
Well,
having a chat. And then it sort of builds on to those things. A lot of people wonder about that. Like they do like these courses and, you know, what do I do next? You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
well, absolutely. And it is as you've spoken about on other podcasts, it's hard to sometimes get that foot in the door and become established. And that's one of my biggest hurdles is to actually push myself out there and into that part of the field.
A second,
But
a second
yeah,
ago, a second ago, you showed me your recent bowl that you've been successful with.
oh yes, the
Could
one that's featured on my Facebook page.
could you bring that up again, just for those who are on YouTube, just for them to see
Yeah,
some of your
this
recent
is one
work?
of my belongings.
So it's absolutely beautiful, beautiful results. I'm very jealous.
Yes, we've had many and many a discussion before. This is just a simple semi-matte liner,
Right.
a calcium matte. So basic, um, pretty much a basic limestone glaze. Uh, and this was fired up to 11 and pretty much, yeah, cone 11 and a half is
Wow,
pretty
that's
much the
quite high.
temperature it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, I do have quite a lot of silica in there as well. Um, so to get that effect, which does also affect the temperatures in which I'm holding these to grow these crystals.
How does the I've never toyed around with doing a matte liner with crystalline glazes on the outside. How? Because I've only tried using like very basic gloss inner liners. Does that have a different effect with your when you're
Only
applying the outside
texturally.
one?
Yeah, only texturally. I mean,
Okay.
you'll see on the inside, hopefully, I can capture this if I turn it down a slight touch. Let's go towards the inside of the bowl. Now,
Nice.
as I'm turning around, you notice some of the side has actually got some of the glaze drifting in.
Right.
And
Yes.
that
Yeah.
actually does play, yeah. And there we go, a larger bit. And that's actually quite a nice little subtle effect that I managed to get with this. Um, and it's a nicer way to be able to put this as a, say, a drinking vessel, um, to be able to, for me, um, have a difference because um, I'm also I'm also not only trying to distinguish and allow the crystalline glaze to um, be the golden sort of point that everybody's sort of looking at, but then having a distinct difference on the inside is actually quite a nice play of effect. It just adds another interest in that way. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a nice working line of glaze.
There's quite a few potters down south doing crystalline glazing, isn't there, around Melbourne?
There are, and actually it's picking up. And I'll just tilt this back up. The popularity of this is picking up quite a bit because there's quite a bit more information out there now, and also it helps that some of the companies that produce our clays have also produced some of the commercial variations that will fit their clay if you buy with these directions.
Right. Oh, okay. Being a bit tricky here. Nice. Oh, it's okay. It's got to. It's interesting, like with ceramics too, because we start learning. We're learning about everything about from production to like not just the production of something. We got to learn about the business and everything else that comes with it through social and marketing.
Oh yeah, by all means. The marketing part is the part that, yes, just like I was mentioning before about your electric kiln behind you. Electric is my downfall. So is marketing, unfortunately.
Really? How do you find it as your downfall? Like, you're more of a gas man.
Well, yeah, yes, definitely. I've got my gas kiln, and built that a few years ago. That was actually a turning chapter during my life, because it was about that particular point where I'd actually developed blood clots within my legs, and this led to amputations. So now I'm an amputee.
So what were those blood clots result from?
Well, believe it or not, it was quite a bad habit of smoking, and what was contributing to this was that I was unaware that that the structure of veins within my legs are underdeveloped compared to everybody else. So you have your femoral artery, and then you could progress past your knee and get your tibial arteries. They divide into 3 bits. Mine just stay one line.
Wow.
And yeah, that doesn't help with heavy smoking.
And how's the medical situation now?
Well, it's actually stabilized now, after all of the things that have happened. But it's a forever thing that needs to be tended to.
Right. I think for a lot of people who know you in Australia's ceramic industry, that you're also a great inspiration, not just in terms of materials and knowledge, but that you keep doing what you do despite all these hurdles that you've had to overcome physically. And I can't applaud you enough for that. And it's it's so inspiring.
Thank you. But I mean, one must sort of think to themselves, okay, there are far worse people out there than the situation I'm in. Doesn't mean my situation's not important, doesn't mean their situation's not important. But life does also go on, and so must I. And try and keep at things.
Do you get how do you get motivated? Like, do you feel you get a huge external support from someone or other people, or do you feel that
Yeah.
you have to build your own internal
Well, at the moment,
strength?
I'm feeling I have to build my own.
Right.
Um, but certainly, people such as yourself, uh, and many others around me, Ted Seacombe, who is a major influence in my life, Bill Powell, Jose, uh, um, in Spain, um, and there's also a number of influential people over in the US as well,
Mm.
who do inspire me, um, and then I start finding myself. Okay, I tend to find bursts, and then I become very productive, and then go off the boil for a little bit, and that's unfortunately I feel probably a depression thing, but through writing with all of that, yeah, I do. It does help um, with a lot of people that I do associate with, and when I do get to see them.
Being in Melbourne, in Australia, Melbourne, I think it's been Melbourne that's had the strongest hit from the big C word, Corona. um,
Yes.
and I know that you were stuck in lockdown for such a long time. Like, I think you couldn't leave your block or even your apartment at some point. How bad did it get where you are?
uh, we had a I think it was a 5 kilometer limit. I'm sorry, I was just looking towards my partner. Sometimes I might get verifications. Yeah, 5 kilometer limit here in Victoria, or my part of Victoria in the um, southeastern suburbs. But yeah, uh, had been quite a long period, and I mean, um, in my predicament, I I can't really put myself out there in too many circumstances because um, being in a wheelchair and so forth, um, I, I'm not really particular to putting myself out in that sort of arena,
Hmm.
um, and with that high chance of something could affect me, and that means just before COVID actually started, I was in hospital, and since then, yeah, never got to venture out into the public that much.
Yeah, but in terms of
And
also in terms of ceramics, like it would have made it difficult, like having access to like a studio or something like that, right?
well, I mean, I do have my own studio,
Right.
um, and although it's a mess, but yes, I'm sure OH&S would not be pleased. Um, but yes, getting out there and doing the things that I need to is also another process that's happening as well. Um, uh, Throughout the amputations and so forth. With the first set, I was okay because the type of prosthesis that I had, which was called a below knee one, um, I was able to easily jump in, get around, do all of the things that I was still able to do, just with a few differences, I guess. But yeah, still able to operate perfectly. And now with the new now with the new prosthetic, it tends to be a little bit harder to get around various things and to wear it for long times and so forth. I have to take those things into account, and then also personal health, um, and dealing with those things. So while COVID's been going on, I've been actually dealing with that part of my life, and and during all of that, slowly but surely, eventually pushing on with the various things um, that I've been trying to get accomplished.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So,
That's good.
and that includes uh, various things that I've been managed to get a hold of, such as some of the local rock that's um, used within sort of gardens and so forth. Scoria, vesicular basalt. Um, and I discovered some time back that I was able to use it, and it would shine through. It'd melt through and flow with a sheener.
Okay.
So I've utilised that, and there's been a picture on Facebook, and for anybody that wants to go through and have a look, by all means.
Is that due
But yeah,
to its what's the word? Feldspathic properties?
basalt.
Right.
Uh, Basalt tends to be more uh, an iron magnesium silicate.
Right.
Now, I could be a little bit incorrect there, but yeah, there's definitely lots of iron and magnesium within it, and that tends to where you tend to get mineralization of forced I believe it's called, and these are spinel groups, um, and also the gem peridot, otherwise called olivine. So they're the host rocks, and if by crushing them, we can utilize them within our glazes as not only a colorant but fluxing agent.
So
And
traditional Shinos are typically feldspar based.
they are,
Yeah.
yeah.
But how do you feel? Like, why did you choose Shinos to go along with that basalt qualities?
Well, uh, that was actually due to one of the things that I did at Box Hill TAFE. Um, we were asked to work on a project. The we were asked to try and make and hand build a Japanese water stone, washing for washing up outside.
Right.
And as we did so, I started to utilize the rock as for texture, imprinting texture into the actual form. The bits lodged in, and I didn't realize until I put on a Shino onto this 1 meter high object. um, and then as it's firing, well, I realized afterwards the result, and it was actually quite striking. So, of course, having gone to Cone 10, I realise now that, yeah, it's acting as a flux and working quite well with the Shino itself being, as you said, a predominant sort of feldspathic.
Well, that's awesome. Oh, that's such a um, cross divergence of different fields of research. So it's
Well, it
yeah,
is, yeah.
extensive. Yeah, nice,
But I
nice.
mean, everybody plays with those type of things. Let's see how it is. It is, I suppose, if you really want to analyze it, it is a cross version of, oh, let's see what glass does in a ceramic bowl. Let's see how well it melts. See if we can get a glaze out of it.
So your research in Shinos at that time, that was at TAFE?
That was,
Yeah.
and well, it wasn't actually research. It was more the effect that I was after on this
Mm.
on that particular object, and I knew the result of how the Juno would turn out, um, but not realizing that those grains were in there, I was pleasantly surprised and took it from there. Uh, One of my recent photos has a Malcolm Davis Shino, and I've replaced the red art that's in there, the 5% red art, and crushed some of that scoria, the basalt, and replaced it into the Shino, uh, which changed the glaze completely. I have a absolutely um, glossy glaze out of the end of that.
Beautiful.
And in reduction, I do get some green.
Nice, nice.
But when you also um, pepper the outside of the say a vase, for instance, if you just lightly pepper the top around it, um, you then get a luster effect in the end,
Hmm.
and that's from the metallic iron in content of all of that.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so I thought, well, why not try this on a red?
Nice, nice.
And that was one of the bonsais that has been seen recently.
Ah, yeah. Okay. I was wondering how that effect came around because I didn't realize you had such a background with Shinos and what led that's interesting that you
Well,
went from
uh,
Shinos later on into crystalline glazes and
well, I've always had the crystalline glazes uh, ever since I started TAFE, reading Peter Easley's book and so forth. But my teacher at that point, back in 1994, said, "No, no, 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 no. You're not putting that in my kiln." um, but nonetheless, it was still intrigued, and uh, I decided, well, yes, I'm going to try and pursue this because it is, and one of the most technically challenging glaze groups.
yeah,
There are just so
that's
many
right. Yeah,
variables
that's right.
that have to be considered within this.
Eh,
You've not only got your chemistry, but temperatures and various holds and so forth, and then you've got mineralization within that, or otherwise, to the people that have worked with glass, devitrification.
hmm. Now
Which,
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Um, like as you know, Ted Seacombe, his background is in reduction glazes and merging over into crystalline glazing, and also that's sort of kind of been similar in my background as well. And then you're doing the
well,
same
that
here,
very
so
much that that very much suits Ted down to a T because of not only his background in chemistry,
Right.
but also um, wanting to prove one of his past teachers wrong, who said that would look shit on the pottery, on the pots. And he said, "Yeah, you watch me."
Well, I wouldn't want to challenge Ted. I wouldn't want to try and prove him wrong. I'd get knocked on the ground. So,
Only win deserved.
well, I think that would be most of the time, I think. But with your experience, what shifted, or not shifted, like, because we all continue our interest in different glaze fields, but what sparked your interest into changing your understanding or research towards the area of crystalline glazing?
Uh, the change was actually the chance to work with crystalline. It wasn't until I moved from my first TAFE to my second TAFE that's when I was given the chance to actually apply that, and hence that was my second year in TAFE. Um, and that was in fact Dandenong TAFE, known as Chisholm. Um, that for me was almost returning back home, but yeah, they had the facilities and um, further refining me as an artist in all directions. Um, allowed me to use one of the kilns out there in the outside area and actually start seeing what I can do and grow crystals and so forth. And knowing the fact that also uh, the biggest intrigue with all of this is the fact that the crystals, we cannot control exactly where they're going to appear and exactly how. They've got their own life and their own personality for that fact.
Yeah,
Um,
that's beautiful. Like how we can't control anything. All we can do is nurture some
well,
form
that's
of
it.
life to grow.
Nurture, learn by it, teach it, pass it on.
Mm.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, that's definitely life. Um, but most definitely, the other aspect of that was, yeah, to also understand the other glazes, the other classical glazes, and their mechanisms as well.
Mm.
Um, so so learning mechanisms such as what is behind making a copper red, um, and um, that was one of the first reds out of this kiln that I currently own. So I was testing to see if it's got good reduction capabilities.
That's a beautiful one you've got there. Actually, the hue on it.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, I'd hate to say it. John Brute's John's red.
Yes, yes. He's a huge source of information.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
If anyone wants
but
to,
it worked absolutely well.
if anyone's listening, then if you're looking for information about pretty much any sorts of glazing, in particular copper reds, his John Britt is a huge source of information to grab from, and he's also, even though he's over in the US, I think he does sort of influence us in Australia a little bit in terms of
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
especially glaze testing. his glaze test methods really impacted a lot of my own research while I was at uni. Did you find? Have you tried any of his glaze testing methods, Mike?
Uh, I'd already been associated with, uh, uh, or sorry, I'd been, I'd already had those tests presented to me, and had done those tests previously in years before I'd actually come across John.
Right.
They were the type of tests that we were taught to do. So in that respect, I was quite interested in seeing how he presented it, and the way that he was able to bring that information across to the average potter and the potter who is beginning and wanting to do their work. It is a rich source there, yes.
Now, for your future, what sort of projects or plans have you got ahead?
Well, as we were talking about the use of the local sources of materials such as the rock, that basalt that I used, there is also the chance of integrating other materials, and also sourcing materials for myself. Because let's face it, unfortunately, prices of things are just going up and up and up. I realize that, yes, I don't exactly have the finances to be continually going out and purchasing things such as tin oxide.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially like cobalt and all that sort of stuff. I know one potter, he's got a secret location for his own source of cobalt.
Yeah,
but
well,
it's very top
between
secret.
between you and I, between your house and my house, in the sense of locations wise, there's a whole host of materials running right through that area. So if you come down towards the border between New South Wales and Victoria, you're hitting a zone where there's lots of minerals, and this is where the interest of minerals started to develop. Is the fact that I don't have the money to go out and purchase all of these things. I need to look at resourcing it myself. What are the ores of these particular oxides? Cassiterite is the ore, and it's a little black grain of sand to a black crystal. And if you heat it up to 700 degrees, it literally turns into tin oxide.
Nice.
So that's just beyond the New South Wales border into Victoria, around Albury Wodonga, and all those boys out there that are gold mining and fossicking and so forth, and they tip back all of their black sands. My goodness, those black sands are full of many different things that we can use, us average potters. Not only tin, rutile, zircon, and many of the other things that we look for. Just down from that area, through that belt, there's something that most of us potters would salivate over. Spodumene and lepidolite in them there hills. So therefore, I look at that and I think, well, these materials I'm using within my glazes, and it would be a good chance to be able to possibly integrate them, and especially being materials that 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 are not so much processed.
Mm.
You're getting elements that in there such as that you wouldn't actually find anywhere else. So, for instance, with tin, you'll often get trace amounts of niobium and various other grade materials as well. That in itself, if you utilize it without cleaning it and taking the niobium out of it, you end up with a unique product.
That's a key thing in terms of a craftsman-made object, no matter what it is, to a factory-produced object, is the uniqueness of an object. And when when you break down those raw materials to something that has its own uniqueness, then you can only produce that special thing one time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it also, excuse me, and it also allows the potter, the artist, to actually have something that's even more unique, that is by them and stands out possibly in the crowd of the many. And we're all after that type of thing. Some little of that we could stand on to promote our work. And a lot of it's in our backyard.
That's true. Australia does have the most richest source of materials available naturally.
Yeah.
A lot of those secrets are well hidden.
Yes, true. But please go and get some permission first before you do it. Because, as we both know, a lot of sites are sacred, and
oh, definitely, yes.
if we're against big companies upsetting various things like that, then why should we be doing it ourselves in such minor, even if it be in a minor context?
Yeah, that's right. 100%. 100% agree with you on that. But some of the biggest things that surprise me is that a lot of foreign companies know more about our available elements than the majority of Australians do.
Well, yes, but I suppose if you want to, there was one little quote out of a movie that I captured a long time back. People don't care how it's made, just as long as it works. That way they can remain not necessarily ignorant, but they don't care about the fundamental aspects of those little aspects.
That's why we've got to make them understand.
Well, yes. I mean, yes, well and truly, because sitting underneath the backsides of anybody within, say, the district of the Murray Basin, They're sitting on little grains of sand called monazite and xenotime, things like that, which are phosphate groups. And once again, this is through looking at what are the ores of the various materials we use, and even some of the materials that are less used. What can it offer us? Well, those rare earth oxides that we pay lots for to get our lemonade pinks and our nuclear yellow greens, they come from those little sands, little grains of sand. And yes, it tends to be quite a lot of overseas sort of mining and then taking it offshore to be processed.
Yeah, it's that processing that's the biggest factor of price there. Definitely.
Mm. Well, yes, not only the processing aspect to lower the cost, but also with processing, quite often you get a footprint, and we all now know about the globe. The globe itself is warming, and we're trying to cut down on the waste and those various aspects. So with production, there's always waste in some manner, and it's got to be managed. And if we as a nation send it offshore, we don't have to deal with that waste.
Yeah, well, that's someone has to deal with it.
I know that's a political one. But yeah, so there are unique ways now where we can actually process materials and we don't get those problems. And that's where our leaders need to start to say, well, okay, here's the scientists, start setting up work, especially when we as a nation don't really produce a great deal within that way.
Right.
Of the materials.
I know a couple of years ago you were doing a bit of research with She-Light. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
How did that go around? Because I didn't hear much about your results of your research.
Yeah, that's actually something I've just taken up again, and
nice.
It's actually applied on work. So once that kiln's full, yes, it will be on, and they will be the next results that people see. The She-Light, I've just been waiting to get various materials. Now I've got a hold of things like 644 to play with as well, and also once again the energy again to actually get there and do that. I guess also I've been wanting to get a few more lanthanoids to react with it, because I'm aware that She-Light, being calcium tungstate, has another effect as well, being that it can be used as under UV light to fluoresce, and especially when doped with other lanthanoids. And that's the fundamental basis of glow-in-the-dark pigments.
Yes, a huge interest.
That's a huge one. It's quite intriguing. Thinking, oh wow, that pretty blue that that's shining from europium and shear light.
Yeah, that immediately
I'm a-
drew me to think about europium.
yeah. and the and then thinking, oh, wouldn't that look pretty as crystals in one of my glazes? So of course, yeah, I started searching around for some, um, and was very lucky that one of the local mines around here does produce it, and they gave me a sample. But yeah, I'd actually lost focus around um, some point around all of that, put it to the side until I was ready for it, and now's the time.
Right. And
In fact, um,
hmm,
to be able to put it more in context, there we go.
some ice cream. Okay.
Yeah, ice cream containers all.
Nice. Okay, so
So
we
that's a
have a shared
shared
glaze
recipe.
recipe for those bonus viewers on YouTube. Nice.
Yeah, so that will be tested, and it's also a thing of confidence as well, because I've got a limited supply of this stuff that I was given, um, and therefore I want to use it rather wisely within the testing. And um, I've been lucky enough to talk to fellow artists, um, and they've given me uh, advice from their points of view, having worked with tungstate materials before.
And you're
Because
testing this in you're testing this in crystalline
yeah,
crystalline glaze format. Yeah.
yeah. I'll be testing it as crystalline because not only zinc is a crystallizer, molybdenum is also a crystallizer. Yeah, moly glazes, as we like to call them. But so is also tungsten. And in fact, yeah, from some of the results that I've been very lucky to see from Tensicum, it is truly promising and absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely
And
looking forward to seeing that.
yeah, it's lovely yellows, and it'll be interesting to see what it's like with a bit of reduction as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested to see how that yellow turns out because a lot of I know there's been a bit of discussion about yellows in the forums lately, in terms of not cadmium. There's another material of a
For yellows,
for yellows is viewed as
Presidium.
yeah, I think that was it. I know it was a
Yeah,
material that was
Presidium.
stopped a bit to be used a long time ago because there was connections between it and cancer or something like with handheld stuff. I can't remember off the top of
Okay.
my head.
I know that the common yellow stains, such as that that are encapsulated in zirconium, they usually have presidium and cerium
Right.
together, because cerium is the modifier to push it towards yellowish.
Yeah, I had that a lot in my own test results with cerium as well.
Yeah,
But
but
nothing to
also
impress me yet.
but well, yes, you've got results behind you.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a few. There's a few back there, but
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk about me.
Oh. um, but yeah, you've also got your vanadium yellows. Um,
Vanadium. I think that's what I was thinking about before. Yeah.
yeah, and they're similar to slightly a little bit more duller yellow than a tungsten yellow,
Mm.
but yeah, certainly vanadium. I've heard about issues with disassociating with the glaze and so forth. So that one would be an interesting one to see if there is a study on.
There's one
Uh,
material that's pricked my ears from about a year ago called I think it's galadium. It's
yes.
used in electronics and especially on circuitry and that sort of stuff. And that's probably, in terms of my own experimentation, that's probably the next path to go down to. But I have no idea how it's going to react, chemistry speaking. But yeah, I'm jumping around as we all do from the table of elements, from this material to that material. But
Well,
yeah.
yes, true. Well, uh, yes, I've been having discussions with people recently about the fact that, yeah, there are not only our main sort of glass groups that we have, such as silica, of course, um, boron,
Mm.
ghostly borate being your second, titanium being another one. But then you're also looking at phosphate glasses um, and also fluoride glasses um, to be produced.
I think titanium's a uh, undervalued material. I think there's
It
a
is
huge amount of potential.
absolutely, but yes, that's primarily a big reason why we see things such as phase separation.
Mm.
It's all those type of glasses not wanting to mix together.
Mm. Awesome.
Oh,
A lot of people, in terms of moving on, a lot of people don't know that you also do, research and develop clay bodies. So how is
yes,
that?
I do actually.
How's that path going for you?
Uh, Actually, at the moment, I've just recorrected um, my porcelain body um, because I had a flaw with it, just a bit too much silica in there, a bit too much
Okay.
free silica for the for the amount of flux that was in there, which produced weeping through the body.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so to sit there with a nice, and down the bottom you'd have a ring of water.
Nice. So that extra silica was raising that point of vitrification too high, basically.
No, no.
No?
Uh, you had the kaolin and being your alumina source, and by having too much silica in the body, it meant that to not enough flux. It meant that when everything was fluxing, there was still not enough flux to actually uh, melt and form gloss within the body with the rest of it. So you still had free silica in the body.
Okay. Interesting.
Hmm.
Hmm.
because basically you're wanting to convert all of that silica into a glass of some form.
So that it was staying, basically those particles were staying suspended. It wasn't
Yeah,
getting to that internal melting point.
yeah,
Nice, nice. Okay, so has that been corrected yet? Or are you still working on that?
yeah. It has. It's been corrected. Just awaiting glaze firing.
Yep, yep.
But there'll be multiple glazes on the little piece that I've got there, in order to be able to test the functionality and so forth of the clay itself,
Nice, nice.
and
And
certainly react.
and also another thing that I wanted to quickly cover over as we're getting on in time, you are highly interested in kiln building. So how's that field going for you?
Uh, that field itself has recently very much intrigued me. I mean, I went on from building my kiln, uh, and then learning the kinks of it and so forth, and its firing, and uh, working out, okay, I don't like this aspect of it. I will change this next time. Blah 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 blah. I also looked at the past models of kilns that I've used in the burners, because yeah, I've always worked with gas,
Mm.
not having the knowledge and so being able to build an electric kiln. Um, but in this case, uh, the burners that we have are cast iron, and of course, if they're out in the elements, they're going to rust.
Yes.
So I'm sick of that aspect, and
Yes.
I'm thinking, right, it's time to start looking up refractory bodies and the type of tolerances it must be able to withstand and perform. Uh, that led me into the rabbit hole of technical ceramics. And of course, if you're going to look at that, well, you need to look at the aspects of how does one fire these items. So if I've made burner heads to be able to fit on Venturi system, then I need to be able to fire them within kilns that will get to high enough temperatures.
Mm.
And I'd certainly worked out with some of the heads that are produced, they utilize very, very high amounts of alumina, and a type of alumina called tabular alumina, um, which is highly resistant to shock and thermal shock. So, in order to look at that, I then started looking up the kilns that they were fired in, other than electric. And it turns out that if you have um, opposing what am I saying? Venturi burners, or otherwise other atmospheric burners going this way along each wall, and also the opposite way as well against the other walls, then you're able to reach up to the temperatures of that are required to do the sintering and so forth of those highly aluminous materials.
Mm.
That works out to be about 1700 Celsius.
Well,
Yes.
that's like double the amount that most people are used to working with. But yeah, that'll definitely be able to endure a lot more than those cast iron heads.
Well, yeah, definitely, and of course that rabbit hole of trying to be self-sufficient, trying to build your own equipment, it leads you down many holes. It's, for instance, okay, started making my porcelain body so I don't have to rely upon my supplier, and so I can keep tight control of my clays and so forth. Um, uh, that's led to the first productive sort of or standard studio porcelain. But yeah, moving from there leads into industrial porcelain.
Mm.
So I'd gone looking up quite a few articles and so forth on the old porcelains of um, of Saxony and so forth, and the first real Western porcelains, and they were said to be extremely tough and so forth because they relied on a different matrix um, to produce all of the millet and so forth. That makes a very good sturdy industrial type of clay. Believe it or not, contrary to the Asiatic type of porcelains, uh, which are which are your uh, uh, your potash and soda feldspar based. Um, the first Western ones were actually calcium based, and so from alabaster.
That material itself has such a deep history in terms of construction.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So the first white gold uh, of Germany
Oh,
was
definitely.
in fact a porcelain body that incorporated kaolin, silica, and a form of whiting or alabaster.
Was that
And
before who was the British, that British guy, when they were trying to replicate the Chinese ceramics, and then all they could make was the
yeah,
brown porcelain, and then
yeah,
that was the guy from Germany.
that indeed.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay,
Vodka.
okay, nice, nice. I thought
Vodka porcelain is, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, uh, is the first Western porcelain. And he only found that recipe via hearing a little bit of chit chat in the foundries. That when they mixed this, and this, they were getting something similar to what the Chinese and Japanese had.
so the British couldn't cut it.
Not just that point, not at that point. Mind you, firing temperature was 1400 Celsius.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that actually leads to the formation of eventually serves pottery and so forth. And all of the beautiful work back then. Um, and that rich history itself as well has also some crystalline work in it. And firing crystalline up at those temperatures. So there is a certain romanticism there and wanting to investigate to see what some of those mechanisms are like as well.
It just boggles my mind about how much energy there would be going in to boost the kiln to go up to that specific temperature, to go that high. It's
Well,
just
they were
boggling.
fired on coke. Yeah, there was lots of energy. The
and
amount of
and not and not Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola.
no, 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 no. Coke, the
Wow.
derivative of
Man, you wouldn't want to be downwind from that chimney.
no, definitely
Wow.
not.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
At
but
least it's
yes,
not
definitely
at least it's not
they
industry
achieved those.
practice now.
I think nowadays they would kindly turn around and suggest, how about we just rely on molybdenum elements or fire the gas kiln up to 1400,
Yeah,
which is quite achievable.
for those listening, like Mike and I, quite a while ago, we were actually designing a kiln to build together ourselves. Because Mike's knowledge is incredible in terms of learning about how kilns work, and in terms of like knowing how much power to run through the kiln, how much you need to provide in terms of the internal space, to how much energy is going in and the input and output levels. It boggles. It still boggles my mind, but I know that we will build a kiln together one day.
I've just learned to design inside out.
Yes, reverse engineer.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, rest assured, we will build a kiln together one day. You know, I might be 80 by then, but it will happen. Anyway, on that note, uh,
one, one day you'll see me up there knocking on the door.
yeah,
So anyway, thank you very much for today.
that's all right. I'll get my sons to do the hard work for us.
Brilliant. Child labor.
Oh yes. Yes. Oh, that's okay. They'll be adults by then. It's okay.
It'd still be child labor.
Nice, nice. Okay. Well, on that note, we might round it up. We've gone an incredible hour and a half. And I thank you so much for sticking around that long, Mike. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast here today, and thank you for
No
sharing.
problems, my brother.
Thank you so much for sharing your background and your history, and a lot of what you're going through, and not just physically but emotionally as well. We appreciate that, and you are definitely a valued member of our ceramics community here in Australia, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to the rest of the world, whoever's listening. So yes, you're definitely one to keep an eye on, I believe.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll round that up there. Thank you for coming, Mike, and we'll bless the rest of the week. Have a good weekend, Mike, and we'll see you next
Thank
time.
you. And to all of you out there, remain safe.
Excellent. Cheers. Bye.
All right, see you later.